When it was my 1-year-old birthday ritual, I picked up a little wife for myself. My mom, not believing in superstition, picked me up and put me back at the starting point, telling me to stay away from her best friend's daughter. Who knew the little girl would actively crawl over to me, grab my face, and knead it relentlessly? The two mothers, seeing the baby's affectionate behavior, immediately decided to arrange a childhood engagement for the pair. When we were kids, my childhood sweetheart tricked me out of my New Year's money, claiming she was my future wife, so my money was her money. She then emptied my entire piggy bank. The childhood engagement was only dropped when she moved abroad with her family, when I started junior high school. That day, as soon as I arrived at school, my deskmate Liu Yu leaned over and told me, "I heard a transfer student is coming to our class, and they're transferring from abroad." I blandly replied with an "oh," saying I'd seen foreigners before and wondering why he was making such a fuss. Then I put my head down on the desk to sleep. It was soon the afternoon. As I walked into the classroom, Liu Yu started gossiping again. "You're finally here. I have to tell you. Remember the transfer student I mentioned this morning? They're already at our school, currently in the academic affairs office." The class representative from the next class just went to grade papers, saw the transfer student, was so mesmerized, they actually took out their phone to sneak a picture in the academic affairs office. Not only did the dean catch them red-handed, but their phone was also confiscated. They're still getting scolded now. I clicked my tongue in surprise. Taking out a phone in the academic affairs office? Just how beautiful must this person be? Liu Yu was even more excited. Unrealistically beautiful, okay? I just borrowed the class president's phone. Do you want to see? I can go borrow it again for you. I shook my head. Forget it. Since they're transferring to our class, I'll see them in person eventually. The first class was Chinese, but since all the school teachers were grading exams and our head teacher, Old Chin, was involved, the class was changed to self-study. As the Chinese class representative, I was called to the academic affairs office to help the teachers record scores. My classmates all urged me, "Make sure you get a good look at that transfer student. When you come back, we need a 1,000-word descriptive essay of their appearance. Go, class rep, go! And while you're at it, check my score." I nodded in agreement and went to the academic affairs office with my pen and notebook. The academic affairs office was a mix of teachers and students, all busy recording scores and sorting papers. I glanced around. It was all familiar class representatives, not a single unfamiliar face, and certainly no overly beautiful girl. I figured maybe the transfer student and I were not fated to meet, so I put the thought out of my mind and joined the paper sorting crowd. The teachers were the ones recording the scores. My main job was to pull out our class's papers from a pile of graded exams. I saw a few familiar names and quietly wrote down their scores. Unfortunately, I searched for an entire class period and never found my own paper, though I saw over a dozen papers from my class, all with very low scores. No wonder Old Chin was so furious. At that moment, I overheard two teachers chatting. "That kid from abroad, I hear their foreign language score is pretty good." "Yes, I saw their past report cards. The other subjects are excellent too. How did Old Chin manage to snatch up such a genius?" I realized they were talking about the transfer student and felt a little pressure. This transfer student was a top student too? All I had heard was that they were super beautiful, and now it turned out they were a super academic powerhouse as well. Several students nearby also heard and began to whisper excitedly. "That's incredible! Our school actually got a legend like that." I have a feeling that from now on, boys will be lining up to peek through the windows of Class 3 every day. A class representative I knew nudged my arm. "I'll teach you a little trick to make money. Lock your classroom window and draw the curtains. Anyone who wants to see the transfer student has to pay. 5 yuan a minute. I guarantee you'll get rich." Another boy chuckled foolishly. "Her face is worth more than 5 yuan. I'd pay 10 yuan for a minute's look, and I'd even pay 1,000 just to touch her." I was astounded. How beautiful could this person possibly be? That boy nodded obsessively. "Seriously, she's beautiful, truly, from the tip of her hair to the sole of her shoes." Just as I was about to say something else, the bell rang. The teachers clapped their hands, saying we could leave now so as not to miss the next class. So, I grabbed my notes and hurried back to the class to report the results of the monthly exam to my classmates. As I reached the staircase on the 3rd floor, I saw that the hallway was packed with people, almost all boys. I guessed it was because the transfer student had arrived in the classroom. I looked around but didn't see any blonde or blue-eyed foreigners. I couldn't help but feel puzzled. Then, ignoring the envious looks of the students, I walked into the class. The classroom was buzzing during the big break. When they saw me, a few enthusiastic classmates immediately asked about the class's exam performance. Because the area outside the classroom was still full of people, I felt awkward telling the truth, so I coughed and handed out the scoring notebook, letting them pass it around. My seat was in the second to last row, near the window. As I approached, I noticed my desk mate, Liu Yu, was nowhere to be seen. Instead, there was a girl sitting there. She was wearing a blue JK uniform skirt and a baseball cap, head bowed. The brim of the hat obscured her features, only revealing the graceful curve of her jawline and her fair, delicate skin. She was concentrating on a test paper in her hands. Looking at the scene, it seemed like she was there for a parent-teacher meeting. I wondered if Liu Yu had been called for a meeting with his parents. I stopped, hesitated for a moment, and looked around to find someone to ask about the situation. I realized that everyone inside and outside the class was staring at me with the most intense looks of envy. This confused me even more. Then I saw Liu Yu sitting in the last row, his expression excited and complicated as he stared at me, frantically mouthing words. His expression was so wild that I couldn't understand a single word. At that moment, the girl in my deskmate's seat slowly lifted her head. Her gaze was cool as she looked at me and asked, "Are you coming in?" The moment I saw her face, I instantly understood what Liu Yu had been mouthing. Transfer student. But shouldn't the transfer student be a blonde and blue-eyed foreigner? I gasped, accidentally voicing my thought. With so many people staring, I could only turn to a nearby classmate to change the subject. Did we switch seats? Liu Yu, in the back row, jumped up and rapidly replied, "Chinese class rep! Your seat hasn't changed! You're still in your original spot!" After speaking, he quickly sat down again, leaving me standing there awkwardly. In this strange atmosphere, the transfer student seemed to understand something. She slowly sat up straight, moved her chair and herself forward a little, making space for me to get in. Then, she looked up and stared at me. "Yes, my desk mate is the Chinese class representative." She seemed to emphasize the words, "my desk mate." "Help!" As soon as I heard her say, "my desk mate," I immediately understood the meaning behind Old Hyun's decision to assign the Chinese class representative as the new transfer student's desk mate. It must be that the transfer student had been abroad for too long and wasn't quite used to speaking Mandarin yet, which is why her speech was slow. I said, "Thank you," and slipped into my seat through the space she had cleared. Just then, the class bell rang. The boys peering through the windows finally left reluctantly, and the classmates inside quieted down, preparing their things. An eerie silence fell over the room, but many people were still looking in our direction. At this moment, the transfer student softly uttered a number, 64. I heard it and instinctively felt she was talking to me. My gaze followed hers, landing on the test paper on the desk, an English monthly exam paper with a score of 64. I quickly sat up straight and pulled the paper toward me, looking at the miserable markings, and weakly protested. Then I looked at the name next to the score. It was my paper. Before I could feel sad, I suddenly remembered Liu Yu saying he scored less than half of my grade. Wouldn't that mean he got less than 32 points? The transfer student seemed to glance at me, but I didn't notice. Spurred by the score, I quickly focused on studying. This class was English. I listened very attentively. The English teacher was lecturing on a reading comprehension passage about the story of a study abroad student. Midway through, she suddenly paused, faced my direction, and said, "I hear we have a new transfer student in the class. Could this student please translate this article?" My classmates finally had a legitimate reason to openly stare in our direction. I also looked over and saw only a very new, open English textbook on the transfer student's desk. I glanced at it and realized the page was the foreword. I pushed my exam paper toward the middle of our two desks. The transfer student tilted her head slightly toward me. The indifference in her eyes was less than before class. The scattered sunlight outside the window reflected in her pupils, making them look like a crystal clear piece of glass. The moment our eyes met, I was struck by her beauty again. It was then that I realized the transfer student had removed her baseball cap at some point. She was unbelievably beautiful, down to every strand of her hair. The transfer student moved the test paper to the middle of the desk, stood up, and, with her head slightly bowed, translated the reading comprehension passage from beginning to end. She completed it effortlessly. After hearing the translation, the English teacher led the applause, clearly very satisfied with the new student. The rest of the class also applauded enthusiastically, clearly very satisfied with the new student's appearance. The class ended quickly. My test paper remained between us until the end of the period. The transfer student stayed leaning back in her chair. I didn't know if she had looked at the paper, but I keenly felt that she had been secretly looking at me several times. But how could that be? I figured I was being misled by her beauty and starting to overthink and become self-obsessed. So as soon as class was over, I dropped my pen and ran. I didn't see Liu Yu in the back row, but sure enough, he was waiting for me outside the classroom. He dragged me to a quiet corner. Before he could start his barrage of questions, I quickly interrupted him. I've met this transfer student before. Liu Yu was instantly stunned. I then recounted the morning's encounter with the transfer student and how I had bumped into her. Liu Yu listened with sparkling eyes. What fate! That's too much of a coincidence. Jiang Yichen, what kind of luck are you having? Not only do you get to be desk mates with a great beauty, but you also had such a bizarre encounter. I scratched my head. Beautiful, yes, but troublesome. Forget it, you wouldn't understand. I didn't have the nerve to tell him I felt the transfer student kept looking at me during class and that she seemed to have laughed when we bumped into each other that morning. It all sounded like my own delusion. Liu Yu smiled and patted my shoulder. What do you mean I don't understand? The happiness is too sudden and you don't know how to face this great beauty, right? I glared at him angrily. Shut up! We talked until it was almost time for class before we headed back. As soon as I entered the classroom, I noticed my seat was surrounded again. Or, more accurately, the transfer student was surrounded. I saw a black phone on top of my test paper, displaying a QR code. Several boys from other classes were standing next to her, also holding up their phones, seemingly scanning the code to add her on WeChat. Boys who couldn't reach her from the outside were accommodated when the transfer student considerately picked up the phone. Liu Yu's expression instantly became a kaleidoscope of emotions. He leaned over and whispered to me, I know people are open-minded abroad, but the transfer student looks quite aloof. I didn't expect her to be so proactive. I said nothing, just quietly nodded. After watching for a while, Liu Yu patted my shoulder again. You were right. Beautiful, yes, but definitely troublesome. Indeed, looks and devotion can't always be achieved at the same time. The class bell rang quickly, and the excited boys left. I calmly returned to my seat. The transfer student reached out to put away her phone. I also reached out to put away my English paper. Just like that, our two hands appeared on the desk at the same time. In the sunlight, the small red moles on both our wrists were clearly visible. Seeing that small red mole, I was instantly stunned. The transfer student didn't seem to notice the coincidence and naturally asked what the next class was. I suddenly looked up at her face, scrutinizing her carefully. After being stared at for a while, the transfer student finally couldn't take it anymore and turned to meet my gaze. I stammered, Chinese, how is your math now? The transfer student's tone became more natural. I'm okay. I froze for a moment, then nodded. Okay. The transfer student's eyes curved as she looked at me. Then are you planning to choose the humanities or sciences track? I don't know. I was suddenly choked up, unsure how to answer, and not wanting to. I only wanted to clarify one thing right now. Seeing the small red mole on both our wrists, I realized that this transfer student looked so much like that nightmarish neighbor girl from my childhood. She also had a small red mole on her wrist. Because of this, we were often teased as a golden boy and jade girl pair when we were little. May I ask what your name is? Even though the truth was right in front of me, I was still unwilling to believe it. The transfer student slightly raised her eyebrows and was about to answer when the classroom door was pushed open. Old Chin walked in holding a stack of exam papers. Chinese class rep, please hand out the papers. So I didn't get my answer. I stood up in a daze and stumbled to the podium to start distributing the papers. Old Chin always liked to announce the scores in class to motivate everyone. This time was no different. Whoever's name was called came up to receive their paper. At the end, only 2 papers were left. Jiang Yichen, 125. The classroom buzzed with faint chatter. Yang Yichen got the highest score in the class again. Maybe he's the highest in the whole school this time, since the questions were so tricky. The class representative is amazing. His score is even higher than last time. Actually, I wasn't the highest. Underneath my paper was a high-scoring paper with 137. It didn't have a class name. I thought the papers had been mixed up, but I saw that the information section only had one name filled in. Everything else was blank. It must have been a teacher's test paper. Otherwise, if the info wasn't filled out, there would be no score. I put the paper down, but old Chin, standing next to me, said, "Keep reading." So I paused and then announced, "Su Qingru, 137, the class erupted. "Who is that? Not from our class, right? Does anyone know her? Nobody?" Suddenly, someone realized something and excitedly grabbed the people next to them to whisper. After reading all the test papers, I was about to return to my seat when I saw my transfer desk mate slowly straighten up, stand, and walk toward me. Her familiar features made me stare at her blankly. So Qingru gently pulled the paper from my numb hand. Seeing my expression, her thin lips curved into a slight, shallow smile. Old Chin was clearly very pleased. "Now, let's have our new classmate introduce herself." Su Qingru gave a polite smile to the class. "Hello everyone, my name is Su Qingru. I graduated from Homerton College in the UK. Please take care of me from now on." Hearing that name, something clicked in my mind. Su Qingru added meaningfully, "I am a Chinese national." Hearing this, I choked up again. Old Qin led the applause with great fervor. "Did you realize that the motherland is the best only after returning home?" Su Qingru slightly bowed and politely replied, "Of course, the motherland is the best." I didn't know what I was feeling as I floated back to my seat. As I sat down, I saw Su Qingru go back up to the podium and bring back the test paper I had forgotten on the teacher's desk. This childhood friend was different from my memories. She had truly matured a lot. When the three of us stood on the podium, she seemed like an adult, able to chat casually with old Keen, while I felt like a child. I suddenly felt that my nightmare was truly in the past. Was her bullying me when we were little just because we were children? Now that she's grown up, she's matured. Then I shall be magnanimous and forgive Su Qingru for all the bad things she did to me. I started to feel happy and reached out to take the paper from Su Qingru's hand, but she didn't let go. She calmly uttered 2 words. "Idiot." I was utterly confused. But Su Qingru then calmly let go of my paper, so calmly that I wondered if I had imagined it. I was a bit slow, took the paper, placed it on my desk, and quickly turned to look at her. Did I mishear, or did she really call me an idiot? As soon as class was over, I ran off again. I dragged Liu Yu to the same corner we were in during the previous break. I started to say, "I know him." "Bro, you already told me that last break." Liu Yu was visibly excited and eagerly cut me off. "Let me speak first. I just heard something." Liu Yu was agitated and thrilled. During the last class, a bunch of boys from other classes went to add the transfer student on WeChat, right? I thought it was strange why none of our class boys went to add her, even though a few of ours are usually pretty enthusiastic. Then, after they all left, I heard from our classmates that the QR code the transfer student gave out wasn't hers. Guess whose it was? I shrugged. "It couldn't be yours, could it?" Liu Yu smacked me impatiently. "Guess who else's it could be? Who could the transfer student know when she just got here?" I shook my head, indicating I couldn't guess. Liu Yu gloated. "Old Chin's!" My mouth dropped open, and I was dumbfounded. I couldn't imagine old Kyun's reaction when he suddenly accepted so many friend requests. Liu Yu sighed. "How ruthless! If I were those boys, I'd probably hate Su Qingru immediately. That's too cruel," he continued. "Anyway, the transfer student is beautiful and doesn't just casually flirt. Jiang Yichen, you must have saved the Milky Way in your last life to be her desk mate." But my face was complicated when I heard this, not happy at all. Liu Yu didn't notice. Still absorbed in his wonderful fantasy of Su Qingru, he casually asked, "Oh, what were you going to say just now?" I calmly said, "I know Su Qingru." Liu Yu smiled dismissively and nodded. "Well, I know her now too. Even her name, Su Qingru, sounds so lovely." I added, "Su Qingru lives next door to my house." Liu Yu snapped his head around, his face full of disbelief. "Are you kidding me?" I replied affirmatively. "Su Qingru is my childhood friend. We've known each other since we were in the womb. She moved away in the 4th grade of elementary school, but it looks like she's moved back now." Liu Yu was stunned by the string of revelations. "Is that true?" I sighed. May I be a liar's son if I'm lying. Liu Yu excitedly pinched his arm, yelling in pain. After rubbing the sore spot, Liu Yu excitedly grabbed my shoulders and shook me. "The early bird gets the worm! Don't you dare waste this resource! I want to see you appear in front of the whole school as the school beauty's childhood sweetheart boyfriend within a week." My mouth twitched. I suddenly remembered that word idiot from the previous class. Anger flared up inside me and I gritted my teeth. "I'm not close to her! We're practically sworn enemies. If we have any relationship, it's a debtor-creditor relationship." Liu Yu looked at me, his teeth itching with excitement, his gossipy heart fully piqued. "What untold past do you two have? Tell me, quickly!" So I dug up a few tragic bullying incidents from the corners of my memory and recounted them. After I finished, I thought Liu Yu would at least sympathize with my plight, even if he didn't join my side. Instead, all I saw was a look of slight perversion and envy on Liu Yu's face. I've known Liu Yu for 3 years and knew that expression all too well. I asked him speechlessly, "What romance novel plot are you inserting now? The cold school beauty don't kiss me? You're so bad, neighbor sister?" Liu Yu looked at me dreamily. "Zhang Yichen, didn't you know? There's a type of girl who expresses their affection by bullying you." I was speechless. After a long pause, I finally said, "You wouldn't understand. You didn't go through those dark years. Su Qingru was my nightmare when I was a kid." Liu Yu slowly replied, "The nightmares of your childhood might just turn into your wet dreams when you grow up." I was so angry I gritted my teeth. "Give me a break! You should stop reading those brainless books." Then we walked all the way to the classroom door, chatting. I ran into Su Qingru by the water cooler near the back door. Her eyes were fixed on me, and the corners of her mouth were slightly upturned. She had somehow acquired a disposable paper cup and her water card and was lazily standing there getting water. Liu Yu winked at me, but I pretended not to see him and calmly walked past her to my seat. Liu Yu's seat had been moved to the last row. As soon as he sat down, he subtly watched the activity by the back door. Su Qingru didn't fully fill her cup. She handed the water card to a boy next to her and quietly said, "Thank you." The cheeks of the boy who received the thanks flushed crimson. He plucked up his courage and tried to strike up a conversation. "Hi, I'm Shenji. Nice to meet you." Liu Yu paused. He only looked at the boy's face when he heard the self-introduction and realized it was indeed Shenji. He instantly gnashed his teeth. "It's Shenji again!" He and Shenji had been rivals since junior high. At that time, Liu Yu was pursuing the junior high school quote, goddess. Just when things were starting to look promising, and the goddess would bring him milk tea every few days, Shenji somehow managed to connect with her. While Liu Yu was still agonizing over when to confess, the two were already watching romantic movies together. Now Shenji was trying to flirt with my childhood friend. This is intolerable. Liu Yu glanced at me, sitting in my seat reading a book, his eyes rolling around. He took note of the situation. He quickly grabbed my water cup and, under my curious gaze, asked intensely, "Zhang Yichen, do you want water? I'll get it for you." When we were desk mates, we often helped each other get water. I just assumed he was bored, so I agreed. Sure. Liu Yu quickly headed toward the water cooler. I glanced at him and saw Su Qingru was still standing there with Shenji beside her. I knew about the history between Liu Yu and Shenji. Liu Yu was so enthusiastic about getting water and specifically took my cup to do it. Wait a minute. I suddenly had a bad feeling. As I was letting my mind wander, I suddenly saw Su Qingru look over at me. Our gazes met for a second. I immediately shifted my attention, glanced at the clock on the back wall of the classroom, and then calmly turned back, as if I had just been checking the time. On the other side, Liu Yu had reached the battlefield. Shenji just glanced at him as he approached, but didn't stop talking. I traveled to the UK in junior high. At that moment, Liu Yu suddenly interrupted. "Student Su, your desk mate asked you to get him a cup of water." Qingru seemed to be taken aback by the remark, and Shenji's unfinished sentence was cut short. Liu Yu held out the water cup, as if this were a perfectly normal request. Su Qingru obediently took the cup. However, she didn't have her water card, and Liu Yu didn't offer her his. He just handed the cup to Su Qingru and said, "Then I'll trouble you to bring it back to him." With that, Liu Yu skipped away, without even looking at Shenji. Shenji was both angry and confused. Liu Yu's action was too obvious. It was clearly directed at him, but he was also puzzled about why Liu Yu brought up Zhang Yichen while targeting him. Su Qingguo had just become his desk mate. How could they be so familiar already? But Shenji wasn't worried. Zheng Yichen was just a bookworm. How could Su Qingguo, who studied abroad, possibly be interested in someone like that? Thinking this, Shenji felt better. Knowing Liu Yu was watching him, he deliberately held out his water card again and gave a very affected, gentle smile. "You can use mine." I couldn't keep staring at them, so I had to lower my head and pretend to read my book, though I was extremely uneasy. I felt that the unreliable Liu Yu was definitely going to cause trouble for me. A shadow approached the edge of my vision. A hand gently placed a cup full of warm water in front of me. I immediately looked up fiercely. "It took you so long! What mischief did you get up to with my cup?" Su Qingguo's hand holding the cup paused. Then the corner of her lip curled into a smile. "What? Are you complaining that I'm late?" I hadn't expected it to be Su Qingguo who brought my cup back, and I was momentarily stunned. My aggressive stance instantly deflated. I stammered, Why did you bring me water? Where's Liu Yu?" Su Qingguo simply said, "Was he the student who gave me the cup?" She sat down as she spoke. I turned my head and saw Liu Yu winking wildly at me. I shot him a fierce glare. Su Qingguo saw my angry expression and suddenly raised her hand, but stopped halfway. I turned my head and noticed her strange movement. I cautiously scooted back toward the wall. "What are you doing?" Su Qingguo pulled her hand back and slowly replied, "Nothing." That height. It looked like she wanted to pat my head. In my memory when we were in elementary school, the bad neighbor sister often messed up my hair. The person who had been relegated to the corner of my memory suddenly appeared in front of me, and I still felt a sense of unreality. I slowly leaned closer to her and whispered, "Student Qingguo, you are the Su Qingguo I knew, right?" Qingguo raised an eyebrow and also leaned toward me. Her voice sounded a little displeased. "I thought you recognized me when you walked into the classroom." I pouted, suppressing the strange, leaping emotions that were spreading inside me. "No, I had completely forgotten you." I stretched out my wrist, showing my mole. "If I hadn't seen this mole of yours, I really wouldn't have remembered." Su Qingguo also turned over her wrist. The positions of the red moles on both our wrists were nearly identical, creating a subtle sense of destiny. For some reason, her tone suddenly became indifferent. She lightly said, "Oh," and left it at that. I belatedly realized that my words might have sounded a bit harsh, so I quickly explained, "What I mean is, so many years have passed. That was all childhood stuff, right? You can't expect me to keep remembering you. No, you can't expect a kid to have such a good memory." Su Qingguo didn't listen to all that. "Then how come I didn't forget you?" I froze, regretting my words. Maybe it's because my appearance is consistent. Feeling like my explanation was getting increasingly absurd, I simply shut up. Su Qingguo was also silent for a while. Then she suddenly scoffed. Indeed, ugly from childhood to adulthood. I was furious. I had been teased endlessly by this sister when I was little, but I didn't know whether to refute her or use sarcasm. If I refuted her, wouldn't I seem narcissistic? But what could I say sarcastically? Su Qingguo wasn't ugly at all now. Calling her ugly would have no impact. As I struggled with this, the best moment to reply passed. I angrily turned my head, buried myself in my workbook on the desk, and ignored her. Su Qingguo, however, seemed to be in a talkative mood. She poked my arm with a pen. "Student Jiang," she said lazily, "don't just focus on your own work. Your new desk mate doesn't even have a textbook." I ignored her even more, concentrating on my workbook and even scooted closer to the wall. Su Qingguo was not to be outdone and continued to poke me with her pen. "Student Jiang," because the wall was on my left. I couldn't move any further. I was like a small rabbit cornered by a hunter, trembling against the wall. I could only hold my workbook tightly, practically lying on the desk. Su Qingguo let out a cryptic sigh. She was about to say something when a male voice interrupted her. "Student Su Qingguo, you can use my workbook for now. I'm going to draw the blackboard bulletin board next period, so I won't be in class." The speaker was Shenji. Su Qingguo and I both looked at him. Shenji stood in the aisle, looking generous as he let us stare. He held out a workbook. Su Qingguo's eyes moved to the workbook in his hand, which had Shenji written on the cover. Her expression was calm, with no emotion, but she didn't take it. I felt confused, thinking Shenji was being unusually enthusiastic today. He wasn't like this before. I looked at Suchingru, but our eyes met. I was slightly taken aback by her cold gaze. I was even more puzzled. Is she too shy? Seeing her hesitation, I reached out for her and took Shenji's workbook. I placed it on her desk. Take it, our class is very friendly. Suchingru's eyes became even colder, and she seemed to glare at me. I blinked innocently, even more bewildered. Suchingru lowered her eyes, paused, and then quietly said, "Thank you," to Shenji. Shenji glanced at me and smiled. "You're welcome. Student Su, you can come to me if you need anything. I won't mind the trouble." He spoke as if I had refused to lend Suchingru a workbook because I found it troublesome. I didn't know where Shenji's hostility came from. I just assumed Liu Yu had provoked him earlier at the water fountain. I wasn't entirely wrong. My seat was in the southwest corner, and Shenji's was in the northeast corner. It would indeed be troublesome to specifically go looking for me. It was already a bother for Shenji to specially come and deliver a workbook to Suchingru. In a flash, I suddenly realized something. Shenji came so promptly. Could he have been watching us from his seat all along? Why would he watch us? Could it be... I swallowed nervously and secretly glanced at Suchingru. Love at first sight doesn't happen that fast, does it? She's really a femme fatale. Shenji was momentarily speechless. He wanted to retaliate, but pursed his lips when he saw Suchingru standing next to him and gave up. In any case, his goal had been achieved. He had been observing from the back for a long time and found that I was quite skilled at seducing people. Why talk softly when you can lean in close? Were they saying sweet nothings? They had just met. Where would they have sweet nothings to share, and the deliberate pretense of aloofness by leaning on the desk? Did they think others couldn't see it? Shenji had come over to interrupt them. He started to leave. "Just leave it on my seat when you're done, it's over there." Shenji pointed to a seat behind him for Suchingru. Suchingru tilted her head, looked at it, and nodded. "Okay, bye." Shenji smiled gently and waved as he left. I felt like a third wheel, feeling very superfluous. Just then, the class bell rang, but the teacher hadn't arrived yet. I stopped looking at Suchingru, pouted, sat up straight, and continued to do my exercises in the corner. Suchingru also sat quietly, completely still. Not entirely still. Her gaze shifted from the empty desk to me, quietly doing my exercises next to her. Seeing my bangs covering part of my eyes, she couldn't see my expression. Suchingru looked at me with some annoyance. They hadn't seen each other in 5 years, which was a crucial time for growth. The changes were dramatic. My features had opened up, and my face was sharper, but the foolish and silly aura hadn't changed much. Looking at me still made one want to bully me. In the morning, Suchingru left home. Just outside the community, she saw a boy walking past, his head bowed, kicking pebbles, still carrying that bad habit. This immediately made Suchingru recognize me. But after 5 years, Suchingru couldn't be 100% sure. She wanted to get closer to confirm, but didn't want to appear too deliberate, so she planned to pretend to bump into me, then apologize and confirm if it was me. Suchingru smiled as she brushed past me. She was happy to meet me again. She thought I would stop to say hello, but I walked away without looking back. I was writing in my workbook when I started to feel uncomfortable. My arm was resting uncomfortably on the desk. I glanced to the right and realized Suchingru had pushed me all the way to the wall, and she hadn't moved back yet. The class was very quiet. I endured it for 3 seconds, then turned to look at Suchingru. As I did, our eyes seemed to meet for a moment. Suchingru was looking at Shenji's workbook. I paused, thinking it must have been a coincidence. I didn't worry about it. I took out my pen and lightly tapped the desk between us. When Suchingru turned to look at me, I said softly, "Student Su, you've crossed the line." Suchingru looked at me faintly. "Where did I cross it?" I frowned. "You're sitting in the middle of the desk. You went abroad at a young age, and it's bad enough that your Mandarin is rusty when you return, but now you're blind too?" Of course, I only complained about the latter in my mind. I could only point to the dividing line in the middle of the 2 desks with my pen. "See that?" Suchingru waved her hand nonchalantly. "The line? You get 3, I get 8. Not crossed." I stared at her, speechless. However, I didn't look threatening, like a tiny, fierce puppy. Suchingru raised her eyebrows and decided to let me off the hook. She actively moved over. We didn't say another word until the end of class. However, I noticed that Su Qingru never opened Shenji's workbook. As soon as the bell rang, she directly asked the girl across the aisle to pass the workbook back to Shenji, claiming she didn't know where Shenji was sitting. The girl was Song Mengmeng, a chatterbox who got along with everyone. She had initially kept her distance because Su Qingru looked unapproachable. Unexpectedly, Su Qingru initiated a conversation, and her tone didn't sound as aloof as her appearance suggested. So after helping her pass the workbook back, Song Mengmeng started talking to her. I hadn't been listening initially, but Song Mengmeng was too talkative, so I ended up overhearing a part of the conversation. I heard Song Mengmeng say, "Have you ever had Peking roast duck? I think roast suckling pig abroad probably tastes the same as roast duck, since they're both roasted. The lotus leaf roast chicken here is also very good. Maybe we can go out sometime to try the seafood barbecue." Su Qingru smiled slightly. "I don't eat meat." Song Mengmeng said, "Oh," and continued, "I think electric roasted duck is crispier. The country is promoting new energy, so we should support electric roasting. Traditional charcoal roasting is a bit polluting." Su Qingru just smiled slightly and didn't answer. I thought Su Qingru probably felt Song Mengmeng was a little obsessed. The afternoon passed this way. Besides studying hard and occasionally dozing off, I mainly found Liu Yu several times to sternly warn him not to spread rumors and not to be a blabbermouth. I didn't really want others to know about my relationship with Su Qingru. There was nothing much to say, and deliberately mentioning it would sound like showing off. I've always been very low-key. However, God seemed unwilling to give me this chance. After school in the afternoon, I packed my bag and took a few exam papers, preparing to go home and get scolded. My dad had gone to meet an old friend, and I didn't know when he would be home that night. When Mom lost her temper, only the usually gentle dad could say a few words on my behalf. Thinking of this, I was listless all afternoon. Su Qingru noticed. Seeing me staring blankly at the English paper, she glanced at me contemptuously, letting out an irritating, cocky chuckle. "You wouldn't still cry over a bad exam score, would you?" I snapped out of it and glared at her. "How could I?" said dryly. Su Qingru had just transferred in time for our monthly exam, and had actually taken 3 subject tests in the office: Chinese, Math, and English. They were all laid out on the desk now. Except for Chinese, Math and English were both full scores of 150. Although Chinese wasn't a perfect score, it was still the highest in the class and even the school. I ground my teeth thinking, how can this person's grades be so good? Su Qingru slowly gathered her test papers. "You scored so badly. I don't think you want to see my papers right now." There was no one around. I looked left and right, confirming that no one saw me bullying the new student, and then bared my teeth and glared at her. I don't want to see them either. Su Qingru blinked meaningfully. "That's really not up to you." I sneered, slung on my backpack, and said, "I'm leaving." Su Qingru followed me out the door. At the classroom entrance, we ran into Song Mengmeng. Song Mengmeng glanced at us and casually said, "You and Su Qingru are getting along pretty well." The speaker had no intention, but the listener took it to heart. There were already a few boys in the hallway who were talking, but occasionally looking in our direction. After hearing Song Mengmeng's words, the entire hallway seemed to suddenly fall silent. I immediately became alert and quickly lied with a serious expression. "Student Su can't find the school gate. I'm just showing her the way." Song Mengmeng said, "Oh, didn't think much of it," said goodbye to us and headed downstairs first. Song Mengmeng was always very eager to leave after school. I somehow didn't dare to look at Su Qingru's expression and dryly said, "Student Su, let's go." I walked a few quick steps forward and then slowed down, making sure Su Qingru was following before continuing. Going downstairs, I heard many people around me discussing the new transfer student. I even saw some people pointing directly at me. He must have done a lot of good in his past life to be the deskmate of the transfer student. I felt speechless when I heard that. I was about to go up and reason with them, but Su Qingru had already caught up and was walking side by side with me. To get out of the school, you have to pass through a wide path lined with cherry blossom trees on both sides. These cherry trees were a variety that blooms in October, and it was their flowering season. Every day after class and after school, you could see boys and girls coming to admire them. The falling flowers are enchanting. Every time I passed here, I couldn't help but slow down and feel the scent of cherry blossoms in the air. Today, there was a slight breeze, blowing the petals into the air. The scene was beautiful. Several students took advantage of the lack of teachers around to secretly take out their phones and take pictures. I also wanted to capture the moment, but I didn't have a phone, and even if I did, I wouldn't dare take it out. Our school has many tricks for checking for phones, but a certain transfer student who had just transferred and needed to be contacted temporarily had one. My eyes lit up. I cheerfully turned around, wanting to borrow Su Qingru's phone, when I heard a click. My cheerfulness vanished. I stiffly stared at Su Qingru, who was holding her phone with the camera pointed at me. Su Qingru was wearing a hat. She let out a small oops, saying, "Sorry, you caught me," but there was no apology in her tone. I ran a few steps toward her, wanting to see her phone. "What did you take a picture of? Let me see." Su Qingru quickly tucked the phone into her pocket. "You can't force me in public." Indeed, I couldn't just stick my hand in her pocket and grab it. I didn't know if I was angry or what, but I looked at her pocket, then at her stunning, almost demonic face. For a moment, she was beautiful. I froze, my face instantly turning red. I cursed furiously. "Su Qingru, I'm grown up now. Don't think you can bully me like before." Su Qingru shrugged indifferently. Even though the hat obscured her face, Su Qingru's perfect figure still attracted many people to look in our direction. Seeing this, I quickly turned and walked away, thinking, if I can't fight you, can't I at least run away? Thinking of the bad sister who bullied me as a child being my deskmate now, I couldn't help but quicken my pace. Just as I walked out of the school gate, someone called out, "Yichen!" I stopped and looked around, but I didn't see any familiar faces for a moment. I must have misheard. I hesitated and continued walking. Just as I reached the roadside, I saw a black sedan stop beside me in my peripheral vision. The front window slid down, revealing an attractive, mature woman's face. The woman smiled and called out to me again, "Yichen!" The face was strange yet familiar. I covered my mouth in surprise. "Mom!" Su Qingru's voice came from behind me. "It's Auntie Su." She was the Auntie Su who lived next door and whom I loved when I was a child. What a coincidence. Qingru is out too. Auntie Su smiled and asked, "Yichen, do you still remember me?" I said, "Auntie Su, of course I remember." I mentioned a few of her specialties: sweet and sour pork, braised pork. Su Qingru snorted and irritably walked past me to open the back car door. "Now you remember." I felt a little awkward. Auntie Su looked at both of us and smiled, pursing her lips. "Hurry up and get in the car. Your parents are waiting at the hotel." I quickly nodded. So when Mom said Dad was meeting an old friend at noon, she meant Uncle Su. The drive took about half an hour to reach the hotel. Sure enough, my parents were there. I politely greeted the middle-aged man sitting next to my dad. "Uncle Su." Uncle Su smiled and stood up from his seat, comparing his height to mine. "Young man, it's only been a few years, and you've grown so tall." My dad also laughed. "Isn't it? In the blink of an eye, he's in high school. It feels like Yichen wetting the bed was just yesterday." I was so embarrassed I wanted to find a hole to crawl into. Soon after exchanging pleasantries, everyone sat down. I sat next to my mom, and Su Qingru sat next to Auntie Su. We happened to be sitting right next to each other. As we sat down, Su Qingru even actively pulled out the chair for me. I was instantly speechless. Is this still the Su Qingru I know? She was completely different in front of the elders. My mom gently nudged my arm. "Say thank you to your sister." Seeing my reluctance, my mom added, "What's wrong? This is your sister Qingru from childhood. Don't you remember?" Auntie Su interjected. "It's such a coincidence. When we processed Qingru's transfer application this time, she randomly chose a class, and it happened to be Yichen's class. Now the two of them are desk mates." The topic of calling her sister was finally diverted, and I breathed a sigh of relief. At the same time, I secretly ground my teeth and gave a sideways glance to Su Qingru, who was sitting to my right. She's such a good actress. Just as I was complaining internally, Su Qingru suddenly made a dramatic pause, glanced at me contemptuously, and then slowly said, "Little brother Yichen is the Chinese class representative in the class. I'll definitely need his help a lot, right, little brother Yichen?" Hearing the word brother from her mouth, I felt completely unwell, especially the dragged-out Yichen. I felt like I had been zapped by an electric fly swatter. I had goosebumps all over my body, but the elders were all looking at me, so I forced a fake smile. Sister Chingro is joking. Su Chingro's beautiful eyebrows slightly arched, but she didn't say anything. Uncle Su looked at my dad and laughed heartily. Ah, the children are all grown up. They can't even bring themselves to call each other sister and brother anymore. Back in our day, it was popular to just use single characters, right? Hearing this, I couldn't help but imagine. In my parents' generation, would I have to call Su Chingru just Ru? My dad also grew nostalgic. That's right. I used to call you Hong every day, and I called Yichen's mom Bai. It's not the same anymore. My mom, whose expression was usually composed and unfazed, changed. Her temple twitched, and she took a sip of tea to calm herself. Auntie Su teased, Yichen, if you're embarrassed to call her sister, you can just call her Chingru. Uncle Su also nodded in agreement. I was shocked by this and looked at Su Chingru. I tried my best to speak calmly. Chingro. Su Chingro still didn't say anything. She was overly well-behaved in front of the adults, smiling politely at just the right moments. During the conversation, people talked about other things. The waiter started serving the dishes. Midway through the meal, Auntie Su suddenly slapped her thigh. Oh, Su, she said, looking at Uncle Su. I almost forgot. Why didn't you remind me about the thing? Uncle Su was startled, then also suddenly remembered. Oh dear, my memory. I left the thing in the car. He then took out his phone to call the driver, asking him to bring up the black box from the trunk. I hadn't been paying much attention to the adults' conversation. Suddenly, a piece of lobster landed on my plate. I froze and turned my head to look at Su Chingro, who was putting down her chopsticks with a lazy expression. I spoke to her one word at a time. What are you doing? Su Chingro seemed disappointed not to get the reaction she wanted and let out a soft ooh. She asked, in an incredibly annoying tone, You're not afraid of lobster anymore? I remember you were pinched by a lobster when you were little and had a complex about them. The adults were deep in conversation and didn't notice us. I knew she had bad intentions. I said indignantly, I'm supposed to grow up, aren't I? Do you think I haven't made any progress all these years? Su Chingro smiled at me. Your English is still bad, isn't it? I was speechless for a moment, then coldly snorted. Even if I haven't made progress, it's better than some people regressing, getting more and more childish. Little brother Yichen, Sister Chingru doesn't like to hear that, Su Chingru said lazily. Then, as if an idea struck her, her eyes narrowed into a sly smile. Little brother Yichen, say, Sister Chingru, and let me hear it. I turned my head, unwilling to deal with her anymore, and picked up the drink on the table to vent my frustration. Before I had completely swallowed the drink, I suddenly heard someone call out, Little brother Yichen! I was so startled that I choked and started coughing, holding my mouth. My mom quickly came over to pat my back. Drink slowly. What are you doing? Su Chingro calmly handed me 2 napkins. I coughed even harder. When I finally calmed down, I saw Auntie Su walk over and hand me an exquisite red velvet box. Yichen, this is a little gift for you to commemorate our meeting. I hadn't expected a gift. I quickly stood up and took the box. Thank you, Auntie Su, Uncle Su. Chingro helped me choose it, Auntie Su said. Another gasp caught in my throat. I glanced at Su Chingru, who was watching expectantly, took a deep breath and said, Thank you, Sister Chingru. Su Chingro smiled at me. You're welcome. Open it quickly and see if you like it. I sat down, untied the ribbon on the box, and pressed a mechanism on the outside. The box automatically opened, revealing a pen inside. It was a fountain pen with a very artistic design. I have to say, the moment I saw it, I absolutely loved it. Soon, the banquet ended, and the hosts and guests were happy. Back home, I lay in bed, staring blankly. My nightmare childhood friend was back, had transferred to our class, and had become my deskmate. Although she didn't seem as much of a nightmare now, her personality was still awful. The next day, I woke up uncharacteristically early. Although I was awake, my mind was still sleeping. I washed up and went downstairs for breakfast, only to see my father constantly winking at me. I was stunned, but my mind immediately cleared. Every time my father gave me that look, he was warning me that my mom was about to bring up a mistake I'd made. Sure enough, I turned my head and saw my mother glaring at me fiercely. Yichen, I just saw the score sheet posted in the class group chat after you came home last night. Do you know what your rank was in this monthly exam? Come over here and look for yourself. I don't know, I replied weakly. I only knew that the whole class had performed very poorly this time. The rankings hadn't been announced in class. I walked over, took her phone, and looked. 35. Name: Jiang Yichen. My rank had dropped from 9th to 35th. My dad had known about this last night. He patted my shoulder and comforted me. It's normal to have one bad exam. Staying at the bottom once will make you remember the feeling of being at the top even more clearly. My mom shot my dad a sideways look. She turned to me and said, "Bring me your exam papers." I felt like I had been struck by lightning. I put down the phone, retrieved my backpack, and spread the papers on the table. My mom was clearly very angry. She didn't pick them up to read, but coldly looked down at the papers from a superior position, like a god. My dad checked the time and reminded her, "Dear, look. Yaishin is going to be late if he doesn't leave now. It's just a small monthly exam. Don't put so much pressure on the child." Before my mom could object, he looked at me. "Put your papers away. I'll take you to school." My dad didn't mention the monthly exam all the way to school. I ran quickly toward the teaching building. I ran into Shenjai downstairs. Both of us were stunned for a moment. Shenjai quickly calmed down and let out a soft, cold snort. Then, an idea struck him. His eyes darted around and he said sarcastically, "Yukin, you scored pretty well this time, didn't you? 35th place." I smiled and nodded. "Not bad, not as good as you." I hadn't actually checked Shenji's score, but I think I heard Liu Yu mention that Shenji's rank always hovered around the bottom 20. Shenjai continued smugly, "I improved 3 spots this time." I smiled, not wanting to bother with him. I turned and entered the classroom. As soon as I entered, I saw a group of students gathered around the multimedia screen. I listened closely and, sure enough, they were talking about the score sheet. So I deliberately squeezed in to take a look. On the second page, I saw Shenjai's name, 52nd. Our class has 65 people in total. At this point, I truly, genuinely smiled. I shook my head and headed towards my seat. Shenji followed me, still not giving up. "Jiang Yichen, what are you laughing at? Didn't I improve? Aren't you regressing?" I glanced at him. "Yeah, so what?" Shenjai said triumphantly. "So, if this trend continues, my rank will soon surpass yours. How about that? Are you panicking now?" "Not at all." Someone next to us interjected, "Do you think this is a poker game? I win one round, you win the next?" Liu Yu walked over and placed a box of yogurt on my desk. He smiled at me. "Yichen, I've come to feed you." Liu Yu then looked at Shenji and deliberately spoke in a high-pitched voice. "Oh, it's Shenji! Do you want one? I have another bottle of walnut-flavored brain booster here." Hearing this, Shenji gave us a fierce glare and walked away angrily. I watched Shenji's retreating back and finally couldn't help but ask Liu Yu, "Is he really like that? He's kinda cute." This was my first real interaction with Shenji, and it was completely different from what I had imagined. Liu Yu pouted. "You mean he's stupid, right? He's really stupid. If you told me he won my goddess's heart by acting stupid, I could accept it. But he's not just stupid, he's also really annoying." I looked at Liu Yu with a hint of confusion. "Why is Shenji suddenly so hostile toward me? What exactly did you do with my cup yesterday? I haven't even had a chance to ask you." Liu Yu stammered, then smiled at me ingratiatingly. "Yichen, look, I even bought you yogurt to apologize." "So this milk was for apologizing?" I said, "Don't tell me." "No, I didn't. I just saw the score sheet." Liu Yu quickly changed the subject. Then he leaned close to me and whispered, "I just wanted to annoy him, so I handed your cup to Student Sue and said, 'Student Sue, your deskmate asked you to get him a cup of water.' And I didn't give Student Sue my water card, so she used Shenjai's card to get you water." Hearing this, I looked at Liu Yu with a mixture of emotion and complexity. Before I could erupt, Liu Yu quickly scampered away. I still wanted to chase after him, but in my peripheral vision, I saw a beautiful figure walking into the classroom door. My feet instantly rooted to the ground. I hesitated for a moment and then sat back down. Su Qingguo didn't go straight to her seat after entering the classroom. She stopped by the multimedia area and glanced at the screen. Student Su seemed to have a natural do not approach aura. Several people automatically made way for her so she could see clearly. The class monitor, the only person in the class who had spoken to Student Su, was also there looking at the score sheet. He felt it was necessary to explain to this talented student who had returned from studying abroad. So he said, "Student Su, don't mind that our class's scores are generally low this time. It's just that the test was too difficult, so everyone's scores are low. But even with such low scores, we can see a group of future stars still holding their ground. For example, our class's academic representative still maintains a triple-digit score. Also, our class's math representative, because he scored a good 120 points. Su Qingru listened but didn't seem to hear. She occasionally hummed an acknowledgement, but her gaze didn't follow the places the class monitor pointed to. She kept staring at one spot. The class monitor continued, not to mention our Chinese representative, your desk mate, Jiang Yichen. His Chinese score is still leading, the best in the class and second in the grade. Oh, why can't I find his name here? The class monitor scratched his head, looking a little embarrassed. This is quite surprising. He always consistently ranked in the top 10 overall. I didn't expect him to mess up this time. Hearing this, Su Qingru looked up at me. Our eyes met. She was about to head back to her seat when the class monitor suddenly remembered something and called out to her again. Student Su Qingru, old Qin asked you to go to the academic affairs office to pick up your books. Su Qingru put down the white backpack she was carrying, pushed it in, and said, "Okay." The class monitor continued, "Do you still remember where the academic affairs office is? If you don't, just ask Jiang Yichen to take you." Su Qingru knew the way perfectly well. The word no was on the tip of her tongue, but she swallowed it. She opened her mouth with a smile. Oh, I really forgot. I didn't want to deal with her, so I made up an excuse for the class monitor. But I need to collect the Chinese homework. The class monitor's eyes widened. Now? I still have a few questions to finish. No, you have to go. We can talk when you get back. I'll be done by then. I felt depressed. Jiang Yichen, this is what you call shooting yourself in the foot. Class monitor, you're awesome. The class monitor quickly ran back to his seat to finish his homework. So I had no choice but to accept my fate. I got up. Let's go. We walked one after the other in the hallway. I stood outside the office and peeked inside. All the subject teachers were there. So I retreated to the wall and told Su Qingru, "You can go straight in and find old Qin. I'm leaving now." I turned to walk away. Su Qingru lightly tugged on my sleeve. Good deeds must be completed. You can't give up halfway, she said, blinking cutely. Chinese class representative. I looked at the closed office door, questioning myself countless times why I agreed to stay. Sure enough, a woman who knows how to act cute has the best life. The facts proved that Su Qingru was right to ask me to stay. Su Qingru had a thick stack of books to collect, plus 2 sets of school uniforms, one for fall/winter and one for spring/summer, all packaged in smooth plastic bags. As Su Qingru carried the pile out of the office, the school uniform bag slipped from her arms and landed right at my feet. I picked them up and held them myself. Let's go, Student Su. Su Qingru smiled at me. Okay. On the way, we passed the music room, and a pleasant, beautiful piano sound drifted out. I quickly walked a few steps and stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling glass window to look inside. Su Qingru caught up a few steps behind me. Seeing me watch with interest, she also looked inside. In the music room, a girl was playing the piano, and a boy was sitting next to her, holding a violin and occasionally guiding her with a few notes. That senior girl is named Chu Menyao, I explained to Su Qingru. She plays the piano exceptionally well. She's the star performer at every school event. She even covered for a female teacher on maternity leave and taught music for a semester. Su Qingru hummed and asked, "What about the boy?" I looked at the boy again and continued the introduction. That senior boy is named An Yichen. He's very famous, he's handsome, his grades are consistently in the top 10 in the grade, and he often hosts school events. They say he's also the son of a school board member. Su Qingru hummed again and complimented emotionlessly. A perfect match. Talented male and beautiful female. Don't talk nonsense. They don't have that kind of relationship. I was afraid the people inside would hear, so I quickly glared at her. However, the people inside seemed to have heard. The piano music gradually stopped. Chu Mingyao looked out at the glass window and smiled gently. I waved at her and smiled happily. And Yichen also looked outside. His gaze swept past me and paused when he saw Su Qingru. I didn't notice. I pointed ahead to Chu Mengyao, motioned with a walking gesture, and finally waved at her, indicating that I was leaving. Chu Mengyao also smiled and waved back at me. Then I looked at Su Qingru. Let's go. Can you still carry that? I'll help you. With that, I took the books from her arms and held them myself. There. Let's go, Student Su. Su Qingru hummed and followed. As she walked past the window, she glanced back into the music room. Chu Mengyao was still smiling, watching us. Back in the classroom, I dumped the books on the desk and sank into my seat, breathing heavily from exhaustion. Seeing this, Su Qingru airily commented, "You're done already?" I heard the sarcasm and, annoyed, retorted, "Who was all that for?" Su Qingru scoffed without a word. She remained silent until the end of class. When class was over, I wanted to get water and wanted Su Qingru to move forward a bit. Before I could speak, Su Qingru looked up at me. She smiled gently, and her tone was soft. Quote, "Getting water? I'll get it for you." I was a little suspicious. After just one day as desk mates, I had already concluded that she was more childish and just as awful as before. Such gentle moments were rare. I didn't believe her. My mind circled a few times, and I realized with a sudden clarity, "Are you trying to borrow my water card?" When Su Qingru heard this, the smile on her face froze. I put both my cup and my water card in front of her. "You have to go to the office on the second floor to get a new card and put money on it. Are you still waiting for the school to give you one?" Also, stop with the fake smile. The last remnants of Su Qingru's smile disappeared. She gave a cold look and spat out 4 icy words. "Go get it yourself." I knew it, such pretense. What an awful, childish freak. I added another adjective to Su Qingru, fickle. In the end, I didn't go to get water, because Liu Yu came over and asked me to go to the convenience store. Su Qingru slowly moved her chair to make way for me. Liu Yu loves spicy snacks, La Tiao. Almost every time he goes to buy snacks, he buys a pack or two. This time was no different. As soon as we entered the store, he headed straight for the shelf piled with spicy snacks. Watching Liu Yu eat, I secretly craved that junk food too, but I'm slightly allergic to spicy snacks. I still had some of the ointment from the last time I had an allergic reaction. A little bit shouldn't hurt this time, right? I stood there hesitating for a long time. I told Liu Yu, get one more pack. Liu Yu hadn't forgotten that I couldn't eat spicy snacks. "You want to eat them?" "I just want to taste one." But honestly, Liu Yu definitely wouldn't let me eat it. So I thought I was being clever and said, "I'm not eating it. I'm getting a pack for Su Qingru. She wants to eat it." Really? I wouldn't have thought that. Su Qingru doesn't look like the type of person who would love this kind of junk food. Maybe she likes spicy food. I secretly chuckled and nodded along. I figured my breath would smell after eating, so I'd have to buy a drink to wash down the taste. I asked Liu Yu, "Do you want a drink?" "What? Is Su Qingru asking you to get her a drink now too?" "I want a drink." "Getting her a bottle of water would be fine too," I said. Then a light bulb suddenly went off in my head, and I had a realization. Liu Yu had reminded me. That's right, Su Qingru doesn't have a water card or a cup. Then why did she try to borrow my water card? Was she really being kind and offering to get me water? I was dumbfounded. Liu Yu was also stunned. "What are you talking about?" I didn't know how to explain. I couldn't even figure it out myself. So I shook my head. "Nothing. I'll get a bottle of water for Su Qingru too. What do you want to drink?" "I'll grab it while I'm at it." Liu Yu had already finished picking out his snacks. Let's go. I'll go with you." Meanwhile, in an unnoticed corner, after we walked away, a boy stood thoughtfully on the other side of the spicy snack shelf. His phone was still on a messaging screen with a short conversation. "The girl we saw at the music room today, is she Jiang Yichen's girlfriend?" "I've never seen her before." The other person, "No idea. But I heard a transfer student came to Yichen's class. I saw them carrying textbooks and school uniforms from the academic affairs office, so that must be her." The boy stood for a long time, then nervously clicked on another person's profile picture and sent a message. "Do you know the name of the new transfer student in the first grade?" The other person quickly replied, "If you mean the famous one, I know. Su Qingru." The person replied again, "Brother Chen, you usually don't care about this gossip. Why are you suddenly interested in this transfer student?" Replied, "Nothing, wrong person." When Liu Yu and I got back to the class, it was almost time for class. We had to save the snacks for the long break. I sat down with a bag of snacks under Suchungru's critical gaze. I awkwardly explained, "Don't look at me like that. This is for the whole day, not just for one sitting, and I have to share it with friends. I don't really eat that much." Suchungru's lips curled into a slight smile. "Explaining yourself to me?" I didn't say anything. "Your eyes gave you away?" I said calmly, "You were thinking I'm a pig for eating so much, right?" As soon as I finished, I saw Suchingro raise an eyebrow. It was too late when I realized what I had said. Suchingro nodded. "It is a fact," I sneered, took out the bottle of soda I had bought for her, and tossed it into her lap. I was kind enough to bring someone water, and that person curses me in their heart. Suchingru caught the soda bottle I threw at her with one hand. She was slightly surprised. She really hadn't expected me to bring her anything. She looked at the bottle, and then at me. Suchingro drew out her words, her voice laced with a playful inflection. "Thank you, Student Jiang." I tried to take the opportunity to ask if I had misunderstood the conversation that happened before we went to the convenience store. Just as I was about to speak, the class bell rang and Old Keen immediately walked in. So I had to shut up and plan to ask after class. Old Queen not only taught Chinese this time, but also held a short class meeting in the first 10 minutes of class. She specifically praised the average students who had made progress in the exam and added a quick remark. "Students with good grades shouldn't be proud. Once you get proud, you will be ruthlessly left behind by others." I automatically assumed Old Chwin was lecturing me and lowered my head in shame. I finally endured until class ended. As soon as it was over, I immediately put my head down on the desk to sleep. I had behaved very well yesterday, because Suchingru's arrival caused me such a shock that I couldn't get sleepy at all. But today, after completely accepting that the bizarre transfer student was my former childhood friend, feeling sleepy became a matter of course. When I was sleepy, I still held a pen for appearances. The cap was off, and the tip was initially pointing down at the exam paper. But as I gradually succumbed to sleep, the hand holding the pen slumped onto the desk, and the tip pointed at myself. After class, there was a commotion in the back row. I stirred, disturbed by the noise. I tightened my arm and felt a tickling sensation on my face. In my dream, a clear laugh drifted from a distant sky. Suchingro was looking at me, unconsciously drawing on my face with the pen. Draw, draw, draw. Soon, a tangled mess of black lines was drawn. She watched with relish, having no intention of waking me up. She even instinctively tried to reach for her phone to take a picture, but her pocket was empty. Suchingru then remembered that Old Chin had forbidden her from bringing her phone today after processing her paperwork yesterday. This made her feel a bit disappointed. I was still moving unconsciously. The black lines on my face were expanding their range. I would soon become a black-faced cat. Suchingro had watched enough and was about to mercifully pull the pen out of my hand, when a hand suddenly reached over from the back left and snatched the pen from my grasp before she could move. The hand also gently patted my shoulder. "Don't write." Suchingru looked back. It was an unfamiliar girl. She was carrying 2 cups of chilled milk tea. The girl glanced at me, then naturally looked at Suchingru, sitting next to me. She was stunned for a moment, then lightly moved her gaze away. She looked at the milk tea labels and placed 1 cup on the windowsill next to me. Just then, Liu Yu also came over. His view was blocked by the girl, so he didn't see I was sleeping. Liu Yu exclaimed, "Hey, Yang Yuting, you're here!" Yang Yuting forced a smile and handed the other cup of milk tea to Liu Yu. "Here, this is for you." "Thank you, Sister Ting. You still remember me." Liu Yu accepted the milk tea with a beaming smile. He was about to say a few more flattering words, but suddenly remembered Suchingru was right next to them, and the remaining words got stuck in his throat. Liu Yu inexplicably felt that the scene was turning into a love triangle with Zhang Yichen as the male protagonist. It was only then that Liu Yu saw me sleeping on the desk with a black mess on my face. Liu Yu slapped my back. "Zhang Yichen, get up or I'm gonna sell you." I cried out in pain and barely moved my eyelids, still unaware of what was happening. "Don't yell at me, I'm so tired, just let me sleep a little longer." "Big brother, get up and look at yourself," Liu Yu said, annoyed. I closed my eyes, stretched out an arm, and patted the desk next to me, accidentally touching someone. I thought my deskmate was Liu Yu, so I gave Suchingru an appeasing pat, then grabbed her hand, rested my head on her arm, and mumbled, "Shut up." Suchingru, whose arm was being used as a pillow, looked completely astonished. Liu Yu couldn't bear to look at the faces of the two beauties next to me, so he just pressed his cold milk tea against the back of my neck. 2 seconds later, I violently smacked away the object on my neck and sat up in alarm. Still groggy, I looked up and saw 3 people staring at me. I thought I was seeing double, but a closer look revealed the 3 images were different and even different genders. I opened my eyes wide, slowly waking up. What's wrong with you guys? Liu Yu lifted his chin, signaling for me to look at my wandering hand, following his gaze. I was slow to react, then saw my hand resting on Su Qingru's forearm. I instantly widened my eyes and snatched my hand back. My ears were a little red, and I, the wrongdoer, complained first in a fierce tone. Why did you put your arm under my hand? Su Qingru tilted her head, staring at me with a look of utter speechlessness. Liu Yu couldn't stand watching my embarrassing display anymore. He pulled out a napkin and slapped it on my face. Shut up, Your Majesty! Wipe your face first! I thought I was drooling and awkwardly tried to wipe my mouth. Liu Yu borrowed a compact mirror from a female student next to him and held it up to me. I stared at myself in the mirror for 3 seconds. With people all around, I barely held back a scream, but anyone could tell that I was very emotional right now. Yang Yuting comforted me. It's fine, it's cute. If you feel embarrassed, I'll draw a circle on my face too. Only then did I realize Yang Yuting was also there. I paused. As I picked up the small mirror to wipe the black mark off my face, I asked her, "Why are you here? Didn't you say you were going to exchange at other schools?" "It's over," she replied. "I haven't gone back to school to get some stuff yet. I passed by a milk tea shop on the way and got you guys a cup of milk tea." Yang Yuting pointed to the windowsill. "Your favorite roast milk tea, with ice, pudding, red beans, and pearls." I lamented. I must be destined for a life of hard work. Su Qingru suddenly glanced at me. I saw it from the corner of my eye. She was silent for a while. Then, perhaps having remembered something, she said to Yang Yuting, "You don't need to put everything in it every time, as if I'm a huge eater." Yang Yuting smiled. "Aren't they just toppings?" Su Qingru sneered. "Are you drinking 8 treasure kanji?" The two spoke almost simultaneously. I slowed down my pace of wiping my face. I inexplicably felt uncomfortable all over in the current atmosphere. Was it because there were too many people? Liu Yu, who was watching from the side, had a very lively expression. Those watching the excitement never think the drama is big enough. I replied to Yang Yuting first. "It does sound like a lot." Then I put down the mirror, covered my blackened cheek, and glared at Su Qingru. Yang Yuting started to say something, but before she could, I looked at Su Qingru and blurted out, "Wait, why do I suddenly have a pen mark on my face? I wasn't holding a pen. Did you draw on my face while I was sleeping?" Su Qingru laughed. She said ominously, "Jiang Yichen, if you fall asleep again next class, I'll kill you." Yang Yuting looked at Su Qingru again and actively spoke up. "It wasn't her. Don't wrongly accuse people. It was me. I took the black pen out of your hand when I arrived." I said, "Oh." Su Qingru gave Yang Yuting a faint look. Yang Yuting added, "You should go to the restroom and wash your face with water. Wiping it won't get it off." Liu Yu chimed in, "Bring the snacks and the milk tea. After you wash up, we can go eat on the sports field." I nodded, took the snacks out of my desk cubby, and rummaged through my backpack for my wallet. "Why are you taking money? Are you going to buy something else?" Liu Yu asked. "No." I lowered my head, counted the money, and handed 15 yuan to Yang Yuting, milk tea money. Yang Yuting pushed my hand back. "Don't be silly. That's how small boats of friendship sink. If you feel bad, you can treat me next time." I thought that was fair, so I put the money away, held the paper to one cheek, and we quickly left the classroom. The area around Su Qingru instantly became quiet. The noise was far away from her. Everything changes every second, and people are the same. She looked down and laughed self-mockingly, then stood up and walked out too. We sat down in the shade of a tree on the sports field. I started opening snacks with Liu Yu. Yang Yuting popped a chip into her mouth and said, "Yang Yichen, your new desk mate. I don't think I've ever seen her in your class before." I thought for a moment and quoted what I had overheard others say about Su Qingru. Overseas graduate, top student, beauty and talent coexist. Then I added my own comment. "She looks quite glamorous, but she's actually a capricious, impolite little demon." Liu Yu was dumbfounded. "What did you experience in half a day for you to have such a low opinion of her?" I experienced too much, I said. But with Yang Yuting nearby, I didn't elaborate. I just shook my head. The fierceness on my face didn't look fake. Yang Yuting felt slightly reassured, thinking she'd have to find Liu Yu privately to get the specifics. We took out the snacks to share with Yang Yuting, and quickly finished most of them. Yang Yuting went to throw the trash into the bin. As soon as she left, Liu Yu asked, "Are you getting familiar with Student Su quickly?" "Quite quickly," I admitted. "I have Student Su Qingrao to thank for using her extremely awful personality to break through the awkwardness of us not seeing each other for years. It reminds me of the days when I was teased as a child. Now, seeing Su Qingrao just makes me angry, and I just want to talk back to her." While complaining internally, I quickly took advantage of Liu Yu yawning to shove a pack of spicy snacks into my pocket. Liu Yu really didn't notice my small movement. He wanted to keep asking questions. Yang Yuting had already run back, so I spoke up. "Time's almost up. We should go back." Yang Yuting looked at her watch. "It's the long break now. There are still 15 minutes, and I need to go to the restroom." "All right, then I should head back too," Yang Yuting said. "I'll come find you later. Bye-bye." Liu Yu and I waved at her. Once she was gone, I nudged Liu Yu's arm. "You go first. I need to use the restroom on the field." Liu Yu looked confused. "Are you really going to the restroom? I thought you were making an excuse." I was startled, thinking Liu Yu had seen me secretly hide a pack of spicy snacks. I widened my eyes and defensively retorted, "Why would I make an excuse?" Liu Yu was also guilty, thinking I had figured something out, so he didn't notice my guilty conscience. "Nothing. I'll go first then. Watch the time, don't be late." With both of us having hidden agendas, we parted ways on the spot. I couldn't wait and found a secluded corner to try a bite of the spicy snack. Liu Yu, on the other hand, thought to himself, "I'm never going to impulsively try to be a wingman again. This guy is too dense." The spicy snack was one Liu Yu had gotten, and I hadn't tasted it before. The first bite was so spicy that I spat it out and choked several times. "This is too spicy! How can Liu Yu eat 2 packs with a straight face?" My eyebrows furrowed together. I was coughing from the spiciness. The other drinks I bought were all taken away by Liu Yu, and the milk tea was finished and thrown away. I rested for a while in place, finding my mouth was still burning. I wanted to buy another bottle of water, but when I felt my pockets, I hadn't brought any money. I felt utterly desperate. I thought about trying my luck at the convenience store entrance to see if I could run into someone I knew to borrow a couple of yuan. I walked out from behind the tree I was standing behind. Before taking a few steps, I saw a beautiful figure sitting with her back to me on the small stage nearby. Wasn't that Su Qingrao's back? I hadn't expected to run into her. I was about to go up and say hello when a curious thought popped into my head. I came to this secluded corner to secretly eat spicy snacks. What is Su Qingrao doing here alone? Maybe I can catch her with some dirt. So I tiptoed around to the front of the stage and suddenly rushed out to stand in front of her. Su Qingrao was clearly surprised. Then, with an incredibly quick reaction, she used 2 fingers to pluck something from her mouth and hid it behind her back. Her movements were too fast. I only caught a glimpse of a white stick. However, it was because of that action that I immediately paid attention to what was in her mouth. She was here secretly, with a white, stick-like object in her mouth, clearly not wanting me to see it. What could it be? Su Qingrao is smoking. The moment I came to this conclusion, I felt awful. My face showed my awkwardness. I hadn't expected this situation. I had caught her, but it wasn't the kind of dirt I wanted. At that moment, Su Qingrao spoke, her voice slightly hoarse. "Why are you here?" I let out a vague, then paused, and after some thought, replied, "I came to use the restroom." "Nonsense," Su Qingrao said, a hint of ambiguity in her smiling eyes. "Are you stalking your sister Qingrao?" Seeing her like this, I was even more certain she was smoking. My expression was complicated. I ignored her teasing and spoke seriously. "I won't tell anyone." Su Qingrao's movement paused. She took the smile off her face. Her tone was unnatural. "Who cares if you tell anyone or not?" Her right hand remained stubbornly hidden behind her back. I frowned, looking at her. "Smoking is strictly prohibited by school." My words trailed off at the 2 words. I continued earnestly. "If you get caught, it will be a major offense. It will affect all your future opportunities for excellence and advanced placement. With your grades, You might even have a chance for a guaranteed spot in college in senior year." Su Qingru looked like she was trying to hold back a laugh. Her voice became strange. "You have a pretty high opinion of me." I kept a straight face. "Only concerning your grades." Su Qingru replied, "My personality is also very good." The topic was being diverted again. I angrily clenched my fists. "Can you take this seriously? If I didn't already know you, who would care about you? And what does your guaranteed spot have to do with me?" Hearing this, Su Qingru lowered her head. Her shoulders and chest were trembling. I paused, thinking, this weirdo isn't so fragile that she's crying because I scolded her, is she? I immediately felt flustered. I said quickly, "Hey, Su Qingru, don't be like that. I told you I won't tell anyone." I took a few steps closer while talking, wanting to see her expression. Su Qingru suddenly looked up, and a completely relaxed, smiling face was presented to me. Her lips were red, her teeth white, and she was beautiful and captivating, shining brightly in the sun. Seeing this, my heart rate quickened for a few seconds. I stared at her without blinking. Su Qingru was laughing freely and exuberantly, shaking all over. She suddenly leaned in close, her eyes filled with laughter. "Do you think I'm that stupid? Smoking on the sports field?" I was dumbfounded. If not, then what was she doing? I slowly came to my senses. Only then did I realize that the distance between us was deliberately close. I took a step back. Su Qingru noticed, but didn't say anything. She extended her right hand and put something into her mouth. As if she had had enough of laughing, her whole demeanor was one of relaxed laziness. She was holding a white stick in her mouth, but it didn't affect her speech. It was still that familiar, teasing, captivating, yet slightly annoying tone that was uniquely Su Qingru's. "Little Yichen, getting caught eating a lollipop, what school rule is that breaking?" When I finally saw what she was holding in her mouth, my whole face flushed hot. I was angry and frustrated, unable to say a word, and just wanted to turn and leave. A hand reached out and grabbed me. "Don't go!" Su Qingru cooed softly, her voice a little gentle. The next second, she placed something in my hand. I looked down, and I heard her charming laugh again. "Sister Qingru has another candy." After 2 seconds, she started holding back her laughter again. "Eat it and don't tell anyone. I still want that guaranteed spot." I held the lollipop in my hand, completely exasperated. "Ha ha ha ha!" Su Qingru laughed. Her laughter seemed to have a physical form of happiness, echoing across the sports field and easily infecting my mood. "Stop laughing!" I had been keeping a straight face, glaring at her, but I couldn't last more than 5 seconds. I suddenly burst out laughing with her. I clenched the candy in my hand, finding the whole situation both hilarious and frustrating. Su Qingru ran to the sports field to secretly eat a lollipop. Su Qingru, the overseas top student, actually snuck off to eat junk food just like me. My last bit of mental resistance vanished. I joined her, laughing out loud. We were both laughing heartily when a cheerful bell suddenly rang from the teaching building. The long echo reverberated across the sports field. My face changed. I couldn't laugh anymore. "Oh no, we missed class!" I was truly upset now. I glared at Su Qingru. "Are you still laughing? Hurry up and run. The next teacher is very strict." "What are you afraid of?" Su Qingru slowly stopped laughing and gave me a meaningful look. "Report." The chemistry teacher, who was in the middle of a lecture, turned his head to look at the doorway. "Why are you so late?" I kept a poker face. The new student needed to complete her transfer registration procedures. Mr. Zhao was busy, so I took her to several offices to get signatures. Su Qingru stood behind me, holding a few slips of paper, letting the chemistry teacher examine her. Sure enough, the chemistry teacher didn't say anything. "Come in." The two of us walked back to our seats properly, completely ignoring the subtle glances from the students beneath the podium. The reason was Su Qingru's idea, and the explanation was perfected by me, the class representative. The slips of paper were given away for free when topping up the water card. Our collaboration was seamless and perfect. Only Liu Yu and the entire class watched us calmly return to our seats with wide eyes. His mind was filled with questions. How did they come back together? What did they do? Something's not right about them. Liu Yu spent the entire class staring at the back of our heads, watching us at least 50 times. Even the chemistry teacher couldn't help but ask him, "Boy in the back row, are you suffering from a stiff neck?" Liu Yu nodded awkwardly. My chemistry isn't very good. I was either busy asking others for help or explaining the problems Liu Yu didn't understand. In between, I also took time to go to the office to retrieve and distribute the Chinese homework. I was busy like a spinning top. The last class was a self-study period where we were free to ask questions. With only 5 minutes left before school ended, I was still looking around the classroom, hoping to grab someone to teach me. Su Qingguo couldn't stand it anymore. She tapped her fingers on my desk. If you go look for others, they might be busy too, and the time you spend walking there and back could be used to explain several steps of the problem. I nodded. That's true. Su Qingguo lightly tapped the desk again. Why don't you ask your desk mate? I think I look quite like a top student. I pursed my lips. I suddenly remembered Su Qingguo's perfect score in math. That was a perfect score. A perfect score I had never seen before. Although Su Qingguo only took 3 subjects in this monthly exam, and her scores weren't entered into the system, with such good math, it was unlikely her other science subjects would be bad. But I always felt Su Qingguo had a hidden agenda. My eyes darted around, and I said, "Are you annoyed that I keep getting in and out?" Su Qingguo didn't deny it. She held up 3 beautiful fingers and waved them. 3 yuan per question, she said casually. I continued, but you have to let me have a trial run. Tutoring classes usually offer a few free trial lessons. But Su Qingguo slowly replied, I don't want to teach anymore. My movement stopped. I turned my head to glare at her fiercely. You're toying with me again. Su Qingguo continued unhurriedly. The last sentence was toying with you. I was a little angry. She even admitted to toying with me so brazenly. I was about to retaliate when I suddenly understood what she meant. If the sentence, I don't want to teach anymore, was meant to toy with me, then it meant she did want to teach me. At that moment, Su Qingguo added, and I was just joking when I said 3 yuan per question. I was getting dizzy from her antics. I looked at her, speechless. Just say it clearly. Su Qingguo tilted her head, the corner of her mouth slightly upturned. It was that familiar, affected, flippant tone. How can a sister charge her little brother for tutoring? Isn't this what I should do? She finished and immediately took the chemistry paper from my desk. Hearing this, my heart skipped a beat. The sudden change in attitude was too abrupt. I slowly exhaled the breath I had been holding for a long time. I felt my ears getting warm. I calmed my racing heart, trying my best not to let the beautiful weirdo next to me notice anything. Jokes aside, Su Qingguo still used the time after class to thoroughly explain those 2 chemistry problems to me. The afternoon passed quickly. By the last period, which was another self-study, I rubbed the skin under my eyes, unscrewed the bottle cap, and took a drink of water. I lowered my eyes to review the physics paper. I got to the last question and suddenly didn't understand it again. I looked at the textbook, but it still didn't make sense, so I tugged on Su Qingguo's sleeve. The classroom was very quiet. To avoid disturbing others, we had to lean in to talk. So I leaned close to Su Qingguo, wanting to ask for her help. Student Su, could you teach me this problem? Initially, looking at her stunning face up close, I would freeze up. But later, by focusing all my attention on the problem, I managed to calm down. But now, I suddenly felt unsettled again. Su Qingguo didn't seem to mind at all, letting me look. She lowered her voice to explain the problem to me. Part of the steps for this problem you wrote on the wrong side. I told you you'd definitely forget. Su Qingguo didn't get a response. She looked up at me. My face was a little red. Seeing her staring at me, a flicker of panic crossed my eyes. Su Qingguo paused. She held her pen and pointed vaguely at the area below my left eye. It's so red here, I defensively replied. You're red, Su Qingguo smiled. Now your whole face is red. I looked at her exquisite face and said, could you please get plastic surgery? Talking to this face really tests a person's composure. No can do, Su Qingguo said, putting down her pen, a smile playing on her lips. If I change my face, I won't be able to make little Yichin blush with just 2 sentences. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. I made an effort to lower the heat on my face. Heaven knows that face of hers was just too distracting. I reached out again and scratched the skin below my eyes. It was only then that I suddenly realized the spot Su Qingguo pointed to was where I had been bitten by a mosquito. It was naturally red. I had been overthinking it. The heat I had managed to suppress showed signs of rising again. The skin on my face was truly itchy. I dared not scratch it and break the skin, so I just pressed it several times with my fingertips. Seeing me do this, Suchingro's expression slowly became solemn. She pointed at her own chin, signaling to me. "It's red here too." She leaned in even closer, scrutinizing my whole face and then my cheek. She suddenly paused, sighed, and directly ordered, "Go to the infirmary." I touched the area she pointed to. Whether it was psychological or not, it did feel a bit itchy. Isn't it a mosquito bite? Mosquitoes are quite venomous now. I suddenly remembered the one bite of spicy strip I had eaten this morning, and my voice gradually became uneasy. Suchingro realized it and stared at me without expression. "What did you just remember?" I didn't dare let her know the real reason and fabricated an excuse. "It might be a pollen allergy." Suchingro's expression was one of utter speechlessness. She said nothing but started packing her things. "What kind of flowers are that beautiful?" she said coolly. Hearing this, I felt a little defiant. "Prettier than you." Suchingro raised an eyebrow. "I'm not allergic," she said. Suchingro finished tidying her desk and was about to stand up. My eyes were quicker than my hands, and I grabbed her arm and pressed her back down. Our movement was a bit loud, and some people in the class looked our way. I lowered my voice. "What are you doing?" "Your face is starting to swell," Suchingro said, looking pleased at my horrified eyes. She continued to make up nonsense without any guilt. "Don't you feel your cheek getting itchier and itchier?" "It's redder now than it was just a moment ago." I looked at the clock on the back wall, hesitating. "But it's almost time to go home. Shall we wait until after school?" "There are still 15 minutes until school ends," Suchingro said, staring at me calmly. "Do you want to walk out of here with a face swollen like a pig's head?" "All right," I conceded, convinced. I started packing my backpack. "I'll pack up my things, then go tell the class monitor." The moment I finished speaking, Suchingro had already stood up. Amidst the bewildered stares of our classmates, she walked expressionlessly to the class monitor's seat, leaned down, and said a few words to him. I couldn't stop her at all. I watched helplessly as the class monitor seemed to glance in my direction, then nodded. Suchingro also glanced at me, gave an okay gesture, and walked out. I knew she was waiting for me outside the classroom, so I sped up packing my backpack. Soon, under everyone's gaze, I also walked out. At the infirmary, I followed behind Suchingro. As soon as we entered, I heard Auntie Xiao make an "oh" sound and cheerfully asked, "What's the allergy?" Suchingro replied, "It seems to be pollen." Auntie Xiao shook her head with certainty. "Nonsense. Pollen allergies don't look like this." Singru shot her a cold look, her eyes unreadable. I immediately felt intimidated. But then, I thought defiantly, why should I be afraid of Suchingro? So I straightened my back and told Auntie Xiao, "Spicy strips." The first word was clearly audible, the second was just a whisper. I quietly added, "I only took one bite, and it was so spicy I spat it out." Fine, I thought. I'm afraid she'll tell my parents, because my parents know I'm allergic to spicy strips. Since I had already confessed, I might as well go all the way. I still have some unused ointment from last time. See if this will still work. I unzipped my backpack, took out the ointment, and placed it on the counter in front of the doctor. Suchingro shot me another look, pursed her lips, and said nothing. Nor did she make any other move. She looked back at Auntie Xiao. Auntie Xiao looked at the ingredient list, had me come over, put on gloves, carefully examined my face, and then nodded. "It's fine. I'll prescribe some other medicine for you. Your face is so red. It looks like more than one kind of allergy. I suggest you get an allergen test at the hospital when you have time." Auntie Xiao teased with a smile. "How can eating spicy strips cause two kinds of allergies?" She turned around to fetch the medicine. I secretly glanced at Suchingro and saw that Suchingro was also looking at me with an unkind expression. Once the medicine was ready, Suchingro returned to her usual demeanor. Auntie Xiao, however, still had a knowing look in her eyes. "You also knew you were allergic to spicy strips, didn't you?" she asked, though her tone was more of a statement. I felt incredibly cowardly, afraid that she might impulsively go report me to my mom. I softened my voice proactively. I was wrong. Su Qingguo hadn't expected me to admit my mistake so directly. She smiled, then rubbed my hair again as if addicted to it. Good that you know you're wrong. Go wash your face, I'll take you home. That's a very nice thing to say. I pouted and gave her a strange look. You're going the same way home anyway. As soon as home was mentioned, I became cowardly again. My shoulders slumped, and I looked at Su Qingguo, who was standing at the door with a pleading look. Can you please not tell my parents? Su Qingguo chuckled softly. She crossed her arms and leaned against the doorframe. Do I even need to tell them? Your face is so obviously allergic that they'll see it from 10 meters away. I know that. It'll be visible, I admitted. But if the reason for the allergy is, well, Mom is already mad at me about my test scores. If she finds out I secretly ate spicy strips and messed up my face like this, I didn't finish the sentence. I looked at Su Qingguo. She seemed to be considering, not speaking for a moment. I continued. If you don't tell anyone, I can give you money. I upped the ante. Su Qingguo was both amused and exasperated. Do I look like a gangster or someone who's short on money? I realized that was true, so I changed the currency to a commodity. Then I'll treat you to a meal. I was afraid she'd say something like, do I look like I'm missing one meal? So I quickly added, or I'll owe you a favor. Whenever you want something, I can fulfill it. Su Qingguo blinked but didn't speak, though she looked somewhat tempted. Seeing this, I suddenly regretted it, thinking I might have promised too much. So I added, it has to be something I can do, that doesn't violate the law, personal ethics, social morals, and isn't too difficult. Your requirements are quite strict. Su Qingguo said with a half smile. I muttered under my breath. Well, it's not like you'll actually make me commit murder or arson. Let's go. Su Qingguo said, handing me the mask she had bought outside. Student Jiang Yichen with a pollen allergy. After school, Su Qingguo accompanied me home. Sure enough, when Mom saw my bright red face, which the mask couldn't completely hide, she started scolding me at the door. Dad stopped her. Qingguo is here. Let them in first. Yi-chan, what happened to your face? I didn't dare speak and glanced at Su Qingguo. Su Qingguo immediately explained that when I accompanied her to the office, I smelled a bouquet of flowers and developed a pollen allergy upon returning. She even fabricated a specific flower name that I had never heard of. Su Qingguo looked so composed, and her words sounded so convincing that even I believed her. Su Qingguo then handed over the medicine, explaining the dosage, method of use, and precautions to my dad. Dad took notes on everything. I was like a toddler who couldn't speak, letting him take care of me and acting as a well-behaved background prop. Mom suddenly interrupted us and looked at me. Why don't you speak for yourself? Don't you have a mouth? How have I been teaching you? Dad nudged her somewhat reprovingly. What are you saying? The child is already like this. I was already used to standing aside and saying nothing, but I felt a little embarrassed in front of Su Qingguo. At that moment, Su Qingguo spoke up again. Uncle and Auntie, the main responsibility is mine. Yi-chan only accompanied me to the office to show me the way. Otherwise, he wouldn't have developed an allergy. With an outsider present, Mom finally held her tongue. Even her anger about my test score was temporarily suppressed. After chatting for a while, Dad accompanied me to wash my face and apply the medicine. Mom saw Su Qingguo out. I lowered my eyes to review the physics paper. When I got to the last question, I suddenly didn't understand it again. I flipped through the book but still couldn't recall. So I tugged on Su Qingguo's sleeve.